All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today we got another Star Wars story interview with a friend from college. We actually played baseball together on the club baseball team, not varsity. Don't worry, everyone. But we were still nationally ranked at one point, so it was a good time. But yeah, he recently reached out when I started the podcast. He's been a really great supporter, and I definitely needed to get him on. He was actually on one of my Thursday night live sessions and gave an awesome talk about the Old Republic. So we have Jimmy Belton on today. Say hello to everyone, Jimmy.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me on, Mark. I really appreciate it. It's great to finally be on here and just get to talk some more Star Wars with you.
Of course. Yeah, I think the funny thing was I didn't even know that you were like a big Star Wars fan, and I didn't think you knew I was a big Star Wars fan when we were on the team together, which is so funny because, of course, after we leave Florida, that we figure this out.
Right, it is pretty funny that we played baseball for a couple of years, went to college, like we hung out and stuff, and it never came up for some reason until you started the podcast.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's funny. People think obviously I have a podcast on Star Wars. They think I'm like some overt, like crazy Star Wars nerd, but like I don't usually bring it up unless I hear someone talking about it. So I guess it just somehow never came up or anything. But yeah, it was so awesome when you reached out and were like, I want to get in the Thursday live. I want to do all this stuff. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it was kind of the same for me. Like I love Star Wars. It's always been a big passion of mine, but I've never liked that big like over the top like, oh,
Hmm.
Star Wars is my life. Like I love it, but unless somebody brings it up, I'm not like mentioning it casually in every conversation kind of
Of
thing.
course. Yeah, yeah, I'm the same exact way. Well, yeah, let's get into it. So
All
where
right.
did your love for Star Wars come from? What was that first memory or what was that first thing that hooked you?
So one of the big things that kind of hooked me. So I'm a pilot. I majored in aviation in college, and I'm working to be an airline pilot, possibly even a pilot in the Air National Guard or the Air Force someday. And something that to this day is a goal of mine. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I've always wanted to be an X-wing pilot. I just think that would be the coolest thing in the world, and that kind of helped spark like my love for aviation. I know it's a little bit different than the planes I'll be flying, but
Just a
it's
little.
still just it's surreal, like just seeing like that atmosphere, like flying through space and all of that. It's just incredible.
That's an awesome story. I think when I think about that, I kind of think of Hera from Rebels. Like she always wanted to fly, and then when she gets in that cockpit and she finally is like up in the air and appreciates the sky, it's like a moment, and it's really cool to hear you kind of talk the same way about flying in real life, not with X-wings, but
Yeah, it's also I always kind of not like super like close parallel, but the way I always viewed myself as like a possible future pilot and stuff was kind of like Luke and Anakin, because my dad is a pilot and he's been a pilot for a long time, and he flew F-16s a long time ago.
oh wow.
And like flying kind of runs in my family. So that's kind of the way I looked at it. Like he's kind of like the Anakin Skywalker, and I'm like Luke Skywalker. I just kind of pick it up and roll with it. Not quite the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader aspect.
Right.
My
Yeah.
dad and I
Well,
get along.
yeah, we hope it doesn't get to that.
But yeah, it's kind of the way I always looked at it, was like a family like that's really good at flying things and surrounded by this passion for like aviation, and then also just everything else.
Yeah, that's such a cool story and a cool parallel. Well, we have the Space Force now, so maybe one
Yeah.
day you might be able to get up there and pilot at least in the close reaches of space. Maybe not out to the moon or a Death Star, but that's
Right. Yeah. I
really
may not
cool.
be traveling to Endor or Yavin,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I who knows? Maybe I'll go to Mars.
Yeah, that's close enough, right?
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Have you ever done any of the like virtual reality piloting things? I know they have them for Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I know they always come out with new stuff for the Oculus, but have you ever done anything like that?
Yeah. Actually, the Star Wars new was it Star Wars Squadrons.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, they had on PlayStation they had a VR game type, so you could play the entire campaign in VR.
Uh-huh.
And I chose to do that, and it was incredible.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a dream come true right there. I mean, you actually got to do
Yeah,
it.
it was cool because like some of the first things you start flying, like how I mentioned, I want to fly an X-wing someday. You start off in that campaign flying TIE fighters,
Yeah.
And that's not something I ever envisioned like wanting to fly, but like being in that cockpit and kind of looking around and then just flying it in the game was it was so cool. And if it's a TIE fighter or an X-Wing, I don't care what it is, I just want to fly it all.
Right. Yeah, I feel like if I played that game in virtual reality, I would get like motion sickness because of how many like turns and loops you do in it. But I really want to try it. I really do appreciate that game. It wasn't my favorite Star Wars game, but like being in the cockpit and like having all your controls visible, I that was so cool to me. Even if I didn't like dive into the game as much as other Star Wars games, I thought that was such a cool aspect of it.
Yeah, I love the idea of it, like just
Hmm.
having like a completely flying based Star Wars game.
Yeah.
I know there was one a long time ago. I don't even remember what, like Red Squadron or something like that,
Yeah, Rogue
or
Squadron,
Rogue
there's one.
Squadron. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Okay. But I thought it would be better. It wasn't my favorite, like you
Yeah.
said, but
Yeah.
the idea was still there, and I think it was fairly well executed.
Right, right. Any other Star Wars video games that really mean a lot to you, or is it really mostly the piloting ones that get you?
No, I've played a lot.
Yeah.
I've played all the Lego games.
Mm,
Those are near and dear to my heart because I always played those with my brothers growing up, and
of course, yeah.
most of the time we wouldn't actually do the missions. We would just try and kill each other.
You could do it, so I mean, at least they
Yeah,
let you do that. Yeah,
yeah. So we used to do that. Battlefront, the original ones. I don't
of
mind
course.
the new remakes, but there's just something about those originals that you just
Mm,
can't beat.
hmm.
And then I would say also the Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was gonna be the next thing I brought up. The Knights
Yeah.
of the Old Republic remake. I know you reached out to me when that trailer came out. Like, what are you even like? What are you even feeling?
Oh,
Because I that when that game is just gonna be remastered, it's gonna be amazing.
I'm so excited. At the same time, I'm a little skeptical because I don't
Mm,
know what exactly to expect from it. I don't know if
it's
they're going to
true.
try and keep the same like style game. I don't know if they're going to try and keep like the same mechanics or if it's just going to be like a complete rework of the game, like different mechanics, like more fluid, kind of like I don't know if you play much Final Fantasy, but like the Final
Mm-mm.
Fantasy VII remake,
Right,
the
they
way
like
that they made
overhauled it.
that, yeah, compared to the original was like night and day. It was almost
Right.
like two different games. And I want more than anything for them to kind of do something like that, but I'll take whatever I can get.
I know, seriously. I never got to finish it. I just couldn't get into the old controls. Um, but I'm excited to see what they do with that. And then in the same breath, we have Eclipse just announced. So they're really like investing in this older time period of Star Wars. And I know you really appreciated the Old Republic, but have you had any exposure to the High Republic yet? Which
I've had
is
a little bit recently. I kind of started to dive into it a little bit after
hmm
that Eclipse trailer came out
yeah.
because I had really no idea what the High Republic was about. I'd heard it like loosely thrown around, and I'd seen it a little bit in your Instagram stories, like mentioned and stuff about the comics and whatnot.
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And then I saw the Eclipse trailer, and I was like, "Oh,
Now I need to know
this
what
is a
this
whole
is.
thing."
Yeah,
But it was cool, like because I have a little bit of a background in that old Republic era, and I kind of know
right,
quite a bit about it. But
right.
comparing it to the High Republic, it's like two completely different things.
Yeah.
Like the High Republic is supposed to be like this nice, like it's a time of peace, and the
Mm,
Jedi are kind of in charge, and they're like free to do what they want, and they're like a police force in the galaxy, and they don't really have any rules. Um, before like the Senate comes in and is like, you have to follow these rules.
right.
Whereas like the Old Republic is just like nitty gritty, like dark and quite
Just
disturbing in some cases.
just all out war. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. I had read one book from the old High Republic. Sorry, there's so many republics.
Yeah.
Um, I had read one book from the High Republic, and I liked it. I appreciated like the Jedi being a lot more, like you said, they had a lot more autonomy to do what they wanted and really explore the Force in their own ways. Um, but it was kind of a spin-off book. It wasn't on that main line. I know they have like a specific books you're supposed to follow, which is the main storyline, and then they have like offshoot books. So I guess I read one of the offshoot books, and that's why I didn't like fully get into it. But after that trailer, I was like, I'm gonna start reading those mainline ones. I think the first one is Light of the Jedi. I think that's the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard you mention it the other day in your Instagram, and I was like, I might have to buy these books.
Right. Yeah, I know. The trailer did such a good job of selling books. It's insane.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think there it's interesting. Like the Knights of the Old Republic remake will probably come out like a year or so before or after Eclipse comes out.
Hmm.
And I feel like they're gonna try and do two different types of games. I know one they said is gonna be like an action adventure,
Hmm.
but character choice, and Knights of the Old Republic is more of a RPG, right?
Yeah. So Knights of the Old Republic is more kind of like an RPG. It still had
Yeah,
like it wasn't like a character choice, but
yeah,
it was more so like a character swap. So you
right.
had different parts of the story kind of coming
Hmm.
together at the end.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, and like what you said, the action adventure, like where you kind of have multiple roles. I wonder what they're gonna do with that
yeah.
because we
It's
just got a cinematic trailer and that doesn't really tell us much.
yeah, right.
But
It's they said it's going to be in the Outer Rim, which I think is a great spot for it because there's so many different species and it's very far from the core worlds. So there's not many rules out there. So I feel like your decisions will mean a lot, and I think it's really cool because they also seem to be bringing in the unknown regions a lot. I know the unknown
mhm.
regions are really more talked about in Legends, and they're starting to come together with like Thrawn books. They talk about the unknown regions because that's where the Chiss are from. But
Mhm.
I think that would be a really cool aspect to explore in the game, especially that guy coming out of the black tar or
Oh
whatever. Like
yeah,
who
whatever that
knows who
was.
that
Yeah.
guy is? Yeah,
Or the guys with the drums. I have no
yeah.
clue who they are either.
I know. So I think it's cool. I think they're like trying in a totally original story and not completely drawing from these books because
Mhm.
I think the book people who want to play the games want a new story, and then people that have not read the books want to also be able to appreciate. So I'm excited to see what they do with it and all the stuff we'll
Yeah, me
get from it.
too. And like you said with the unknown regions, like going back to even the old Republic, it's where a lot of like the Sith dealings happened. Like
Yeah,
the Sith Empire originated kind of in the unknown reaches of the galaxy.
I think it's such a cool thing because it's so like mysterious and dark, and there's like anything could be out there, and I think it's such a good spot for them to go next. I know Rise of Skywalker, they kind of talked about it with Exegol and Palpatine kind of resurrecting himself in the unknown regions. So I think that's kind of the way forward. I think they're trying to really say that these unknown regions are going to be the next threat, in Star Wars.
And I like to, I don't know if you like really like broke down the trailer at all, but they uh, they have tie-ins to the prequel trilogy. And
Hmm.
from what I heard, it's kind of like what they're trying to accomplish is like a tie-in from Jedi Fallen Order to the prequel trilogy. So
Really?
trying to like bridge that time gap in a certain way. But like watching the trailer too, it shows like Yoda sitting in the Jedi
Yeah.
Council room, and then it has a couple of the main separatists like
Yeah.
Newt Gunray and stuff come in, and it from what I watched a little bit on like some videos breaking it down, it's kind of like how the separatists came to power and like how the whole droid army and everything just started to like really blow up.
Yeah. I obviously saw like the species. I didn't know if that was Newt Gunray or any of the separatists we're like used to seeing.
Mhm.
But it was cool to see like the separatists, those battle stations going up against like that unknown force. I don't
Yeah.
know if we know who that is. I know it's not the Republic ships. It's some other force that they're fighting. I don't know. But yeah, it was cool to see them, and I think it is a good thing to really dive into. Is like where did the separatists come from? How did they amass this power by Phantom Menace? And yeah, I'm not sure how many years before, because I mean Yoda didn't exactly look young. He looked about
Yeah.
he looked about 100 years younger out of his 900 years.
Right.
So I'm not too sure what part of the High Republic they'll be, but yeah, I think there's so much to take from the trailer, and that's what you want a cinematic trailer to do is
Yeah.
speculation, hype, all that. So yeah, I'm
And also
excited for it.
showing off different kinds of lightsabers too. I don't know if you caught it.
Yeah,
There's one scene where there's two Jedi's kind of like standing in like a rainy area. I think I actually took a screenshot I could send to you.
yeah,
Yeah, but they have like the yellow blade that's kind of like
uh-huh.
a curl, like a curved hilt, like Count Dooku's was, or like
Hmm.
Ventress's was. And then there's another one. It's a blue blade, but it looks more like a traditional sword blade than a lightsaber blade.
Okay. I think that's kind of like on the cover of the books. I think the Jedi have like, yeah, like you said, like a traditional sword kind of hilt. Um, yeah, no, that was really cool. Like the lightsaber, there were so many different ones. Like on the one
Mhm.
planet, it was like a girl with a green lightsaber and a purple lightsaber training, and then
Yep.
obviously the yellow and blue on that like snow or rainy planet. Like they were definitely putting a highlight on the different kinds of Jedi out there, which was cool. I'm
Mhm.
sure we'll be able to pick one or multiple to play
Yeah, right.
as.
I
Yeah,
hope so.
I know. So yeah, that's a great discussion on that because I feel like it deserved it and it deserved the spotlight. But one of our favorite things to talk about is Keanu Reeves playing Revan in
Playing
an Old
Revan.
Republic
Yeah.
show. And do you think they'll ever do Old Republic, or do you think it's just a pipe dream?
I don't know. So I was talking with my brother about it today a little bit.
Hmm.
Because I told him that I was going to be talking with you on your podcast later. And him and I started to kind of break down like the possibilities of the old Republic and like how they would go about doing it. So I started to kind of think about it, where it's like I'd love more than anything for that to be a thing, like a Game of Thrones style like
Mm.
TV show. Like that would be incredible. I don't know, just because that whole time period, it's like part of it's canon and then part of it's not. Some of it's legend and some of it's not. And then a lot of the story, especially like revolving around Revan himself, gets a little bit convoluted,
Yeah.
because like you start and Revan is like this Jedi Knight and he's fighting for the Jedi, and then there's the great Mandalorian wars that are happening where there's just clans of Mandalorians fighting, and then the Mandalorians are taking over planets and enslaving people. And Revan and his friend Malik were like, all right, we want to stop this. This is no good. And then they try to take over that, and then they end up getting switched to the Sith by Darth Vitiate, and then they're Sith for a little while. But then after a while, when they leave the planet with Darth Vitiate, then their good side starts to come back out, and they're like half good, half bad. And then Revan gets captured after a long time of being a Sith, and then he has his memory wiped, and then they're
Is
like,
this
okay, you're good again.
is this all? This is all in Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2, or is this just in the
Uh,
first game?
so it's actually some of it's before Knights of the
Oh,
Old
okay.
Republic,
Oh, okay.
because Knights of the Old Republic, like where Knights of the Old Republic 1 kind of picks up, is right before. If I remember correctly, yeah, it's right like when Revan and Malik are Sith,
Mm,
and it's right before Revan is kind of like brought back to the good side.
okay.
So where it starts, Revan is on his ship and he's trying to conquer the world or the universe, and a bunch of Jedi ambush him on his ship. And he's like, okay, well, I'm not afraid of you, but I'm going to call for help just in case.
All
He
right.
calls for help, and Darth Malik comes in, and Malik was his apprentice within the Sith. And being at apprentice, he was always kind of like ride number two behind Revan. Revan was like this kingpin, like I have this grand vision of conquest, and Malik was like, why don't we just blow everything up? And Revan's like, no, how about we like take over planets and enslave people, and then we just build our empire? And Malik was like, I think we should just destroy things.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and then after a while, Malik got really pissed off. So when Revan called for help, Malik showed up and was like, oh wait, there's a bunch of Jedi on there, and my boss is on there, and I don't like him. So I'm going to just try and blow the whole ship up and get rid of two birds with one stone.
Oh man. All right, well,
So
Jimmy.
that's
I
kind
don't
of
want you. I don't. Yeah, I don't want you to get too far into Knights of the Old Republic because I do want to experience a lot of it when the remake
that's
comes
not,
out.
yeah, that's not too much into like the actual
Right.
game
Right.
itself. That's more so like pre-context to the
Okay.
where the
Well,
game
perfect.
starts.
Now I have even more context going in. But you brought up a good point with the convolutedness of it, and I know the Star Wars that most people are used to is it's detailed, but it's not as faction based as like a Game of Thrones. So to
Mhm.
bring that whole story in, it would have to be kind of simplified. And I
Mhm.
guess when you bring up a point like that, it's like if they ever were to bring it into canon, it would have to be probably simplified, and that would probably piss a lot of people off.
Yeah, it
And
would definitely have to be simplified. And then a lot of like another big kind of glaring issue with like creating some like form of media from that is there's large time gaps.
Mm.
So there's like areas where like Revan will be imprisoned by somebody and they say he's in prison for like 30 years. And
How
then there's another part where he's imprisoned by Darth Vitiate for 300 years. And it's like, what do you do during that
Whoa.
300 years? I mean, there's a lot of things going on still, like a lot of universal conquests and wars and stuff like that. But if you're going to central something around Revan and then he's in prison for 30 years or 300 years, then kind of
Right.
how do you make a story out of that?
That's true. Yeah, I think it is a tough thing to bring into canon, but it's nice to think about and nice to theorize about. And I think they are throwing us a bone in a lot of these different Star Wars stories. Obviously, we're getting the remake for Knights of the Old Republic, but also in Clone Wars and Rebels and Mandalorian, we're getting this kind of context for the Mandalorian Wars and all that stuff that we would have seen from Old Republic. And now, we're kind of getting this High Republic, which isn't the same, but they're kind of trying to feed that same itch that we all have for Old Republic. So I feel like they understand what we want, but they're like, it might not be possible, and just enjoy it how it is in your head right now. Don't let us ruin it for you.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
something
There's
like
been
that.
a lot of nods to that time period and like a lot of like if you will cameos of certain things that
Yeah.
were brought about during that time period.
Hmm.
So that's been kind of cool to see. Uh, but yeah, I think for now it's best just left the way it is,
Hmm.
unless somebody has a better idea of how to adjust those time gaps, maybe get rid of them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
Clone Wars. I mean, they brought in Darth Bane in the Yoda episodes toward the end,
mhm,
which was really cool to see because that guy confirmed him. And then I think they had concept art for Revan and Malik for the Mortis arc, but they never put it in the show. So
mhm.
they were going to canonize a lot of those characters, but they ended up not. But yeah, like you said, I think we'll just have to deal with it and live with our Keanu Reeves concept art as
Yeah, right.
reference. So yeah,
It's
we
kind of
that yeah, keep going. Sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, it is cool, like the nods that they take, like mentioning Darth Bane, because he was the one that created that rule of two with the Sith.
Hmm.
You get the Eternal Fleet and stuff like that, just kind of sprinkled about, and people are like, "Oh, what's that?" And then you start reading about it, and it just gets you kind of hooked. But
Yeah, you just fall into those either the Wikipedia or you just fall into those
yeah,
YouTube videos of like
right,
of just deep lore dives, which is always cool. So I do
yeah,
appreciate those stories. That was awesome convo on on High Republic and Old Republic. That was good stuff. But I do want to hear. We talked a lot about characters. Who is your favorite Star Wars character? And I know that might be a tough question, so you can
that is a very tough question.
you can give me three. You could give me a couple. Not you don't even have to rank them. You could just be like, I like this person, this person, this person. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear. Who's that character that keeps you coming back?
That's a really good question. That's
Hmm.
kind of hard to answer. I haven't really thought much about that one. I would say, I guess one would be Han Solo.
Okay.
You know, Han Solo kind of gives off that vibe, like he's a bounty hunter and he's kind of a smuggler and he comes across very arrogant.
Hmm.
Um, that is kind of the stereotype that people give to a lot of pilots.
Okay. So you
Is
identify
kind
with
of that.
him.
I do to a certain degree. I'm not quite that
Yeah.
arrogant about things, but you kind of get where that personality comes from,
Hmm.
and even like after watching that Solo movie and kind of seeing a little bit more of Han's backstory and seeing where he came from, what he's gone through to get to where he ended up in the Force Awakens, it's just it's cool to see like that character development over so many generations.
Yeah, I think they did a great job with him in Force Awakens. While I didn't love the plot being the same as New Hope, I do think they did a great job with
Yeah.
him at least, and kept up his evolution over time, definitely.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, pilot characters. I mean, it makes sense.
Right. And then I'd say probably a close, I would say, honestly, more so, even a tie for number one would be Qui-Gon Jinn.
Mm,
I know that there's not much in like the cinematic universe about him, because he was only in one movie, and then he's alluded to in Revenge of the Sith. But just like kind of doing a little bit of a deep dive into like his character, he was very wise, like kind of like how Yoda was. He was very in touch with the Force, and he was obviously the master to Obi-Wan. But when it came time, and they brought up Anakin to the council, and they were like, "Hey, I think he's the chosen one. I think we need to like train him in the ways of the Force." The Jedi Council was like, I don't know about that. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think you know what you're talking about. And they were trying to be like, in my opinion, the Jedi were always kind of like high and mighty and a little bit like full of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And Qui-Gon was just kind of like, well, no, this is not the way that things should be. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to train him, and I'm going to train him because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I just recently read over the summer Master and Apprentice, which gives a lot of context to Qui-Gon and his kind of obsession with the Chosen One prophecy and exploring the Force more with Obi-Wan before Phantom Menace. And there are some great pieces of Qui-Gon like knowledge and dialogue in the book. I know at one point it kind of revolves around this planet having this not it's like corporate slavery kind of on this planet, and Qui-Gon's like, Yoda, why can't we go and rescue these people? And Yoda, I mean, our guy Yoda literally says, well, the Republic can't get involved. And Qui-Gon's like, so we're peacekeepers and we're supposed to be these warriors for justice, and we can't even save slaves for a planet. And he's talking to Yoda, which we all identify as this like perfect Jedi, but in reality, Qui-Gon was even further ahead than him because he wasn't stuck up in the politics or anything like that. So yeah, I love Qui-Gon, definitely.
Yeah, it's cool to see like how he really had like the best intentions at heart, and he was willing to look past some of the old Jedi like ideologies of being peacekeepers, but only when it benefited them. He was kind of like, we're peacekeepers, so we need to do it all of the time. And then the rest of the Jedi Council didn't really see it that way. And I think eventually that's what kind of led to their demise.
Right, exactly. But, and I like how Count Dooku kind of represents him only just choosing wrong. Like Count Dooku left the Order because of their hypocrisy, but obviously he went to the dark side, and I'm assuming if Qui-Gon had survived Darth Maul, he probably would have eventually left the Order as well, but probably would have done it more gracefully than Count Dooku, who was his master, right. which is cool, which is a cool parallel. But yeah, I do love me some Qui-Gon Jinn. It's unfortunate we only got him for one movie, but I think it worked perfectly.
Well, we might get more of him in that Kenobi show.
It's very true. That's very true, and that's a perfect segue. I mean, what's your most anticipated show of all the, I don't even know, 9 or 10 shows that have been announced? What are your favorite ones that you're most excited for?
Right now, I think number one is Kenobi, because I always loved Obi-Wan Kenobi. I loved like his character development. I loved how he was like so young when he took over being a master for Anakin, and he wasn't even really a master himself at that point. He was just a Jedi Knight in training. And to be able to take that and be like an older brother figure for Anakin that whole time, and even at the very end, like you could see the pain that Ewan McGregor portrayed in that final scene of Revenge of the Sith. And just there's a large time gap between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of A New Hope. So I'm hoping that kind of fills in some of the blanks there.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get that context and just see how poor Obi-Wan truly dealt with losing literally everything, and hopefully some more context with Darth Vader and Anakin on what he's going through after literally screwing everything up.
Right. Yeah, his internal like conflict during that whole time. But yeah, and then also the book of Boba Fett. And just like for Boba Fett, after he has that little cameo at the end of Mandalorian, coming into his own show and basically taking over where Jabba the Hutt left off. it's got some promise to it.
It's like perfect poetic justice. Like because he worked for Jabba the Hutt, he got killed, technically killed, and
Right.
now he's in a position to take over that job. But yeah, I mean, 2 weeks. I mean, it's nuts. It's
I
so
know.
close. Um, I think it's just going to be literally action-packed episodes every week. It's just going to be so cool and fun.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines from the trailer that they have is he said, "My boss, Jabba, ruled his empire in fear." And he said, "I'm going to rule mine with respect." And
Hmm.
kind of like at the end of that trailer, he like all of the boss and all the bounty hunters that worked for Jabba were like, "Why should we listen to you? Like you just came in out of nowhere. Like why don't we just kill you right now?" And he was just like, "Okay, you can speak your mind. I don't care. Like
And
tell
they're
me how
like,
you
"Oh,
feel." And they're like, "Oh."
I get it."
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be nice after all this time that we've had the character of Boba Fett to finally get some development for him. I mean, he was just a cool looking guy in the originals. He had a couple lines, then he got eight, and then in Mando
Yeah.
season two, he was like he came back and everyone was so excited. So now we actually get to flesh him out. So yeah, I'm excited for Book of Boba Fett. It should be a fun ride.
What also gives justice to like Django and Boba Fett as a whole, because those are two characters that were largely not in the movies. Like they were in the
Yeah,
movies, they look cool, and then they died. Or
right.
died in quotes. But
I think
but
Django's dead. I think he's
well,
dead.
Django's for sure dead, but
I think so.
it was kind of disappointing because Django Fett comes out and he's got this blue and silver
Mhm.
armor and he's got the jetpack and he's got Slave One and he just it looks so cool when he was fighting Obi-Wan on Camino.
Mhm.
And then 20 minutes later in the Geonosian Coliseum, Mace Windu just kills him and you're like, oh well,
He's gone too.
that's all. There he goes.
Don't be a Mando in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, at least he got the clones in his image. So we got
Yeah,
more we pseudo got more Django and Boba Fett kind of.
right.
Um, but yeah, no, that's so true. I feel bad for the Fett family, but now we get some justice for them.
Mhm.
All right, well, Jimmy, we've talked about a lot of great stuff. I think it's time to get to the moment of truth.
Oh
Let's
boy.
hear your movie rankings.
Okay, so
Are
quick
you
question
including
before I
are you
yeah,
including Rogue One and Solo?
I do. I was going to
Okay.
ask
No,
if that's okay or if I
that's
should not do that.
no, that's perfect. I love having those
All right.
included. They deserve it.
So we got a couple hot takes in here, but
Perfect.
we'll
Yeah, love a
we'll
new
get through
list.
them.
whoa,
So number one
whoa, whoa,
is
whoa. We're going from bottom up.
oh, we're going from bottom up.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We work.
Okay.
All right. So
So
number 11.
bottom
Yeah.
up. Number 11 is The Last Jedi.
Okay. All right.
So the reason it's at the bottom of my list, I didn't hate the movie. Like
Hmm.
number 11 doesn't really do it entirely justice, but there was a lot of plot in that movie that I thought could have just been kind of skipped over.
Hmm.
I don't think it was entirely necessary. I mean, I understand like character development and trying to build a much larger scene, but I think a lot of it was kind of unnecessary.
I agree. Yeah, I
Especially
think.
especially some of the stuff with Finn and Rose.
Yeah, I
And
think the story served their character development, but didn't serve the plot. Like they like those journeys they took were simply just to elevate their characters, but it didn't contribute to like what was really going on. It was literally just a side quest.
yeah,
So yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
yeah, exactly. And also, I think there was a couple things that they kind of copped out on, a couple decisions that the directors were just like, "Oh, look at this big possibility." Just kidding, it's actually nothing. And
Mm.
it's like, okay. So that's
Gotcha.
number 11.
Number 11.
Uh,
Gotcha.
Number 10
Hmm.
is The Force Awakens.
Okay.
So I like same thing. I actually enjoyed this movie a lot more than The Last Jedi, but the thing that I still can't get past this day is it's almost an exact replica of A New Hope.
Yeah. 40
It's
years and
the
it's nothing
story
new.
parallels are too similar, and it's just I appreciate them trying to bring about a new trilogy, but I don't think that basically making a carbon copy of the very first is a good idea.
Yeah.
So next, number 9
Number 9.
is The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
So The Rise of Skywalker was actually my favorite of the 3. I mean, being a big Old Republic buff, the little nods to like the whole Sith Coliseum and the Eternal Fleet, and just kind of like Kylo Ren's, I guess, change of heart throughout the entire movie was kind of cool to me.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. And then also bringing like Lando Calrissian in, and then that scene where like all of the ships come in at the end to fight the Eternal Fleet. That was so cool.
Yeah. Rise of Skywalker had its moments, definitely.
Yeah.
And good ideas. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely had good ideas. I don't know if they were necessarily executed the best, but it was entertaining to watch.
Right. All right. So we got the sequels at the bottom.
We got the sequels at the bottom.
Gotcha.
So next,
number 8.
we have one of the first anthology movies.
Okay.
In Solo.
All right.
So I have Solo kind of low because I love the movie. Like I said, Han Solo is one of my favorite characters, but it's just not better than the ones that are above it. And I really thought about this I put some thought into it. I was thinking about like, where do I rank these movies? And I couldn't rank it higher. Like I couldn't bring myself to rank it higher than the ones that are above it.
Right. And that's fine. I mean, that's a good enough reason.
Yeah, it's just kind of where it fits in. And then I love the Darth Maul cameo at the end. That was just like a cherry on top.
Right. They set something up, but I don't know if we'll ever see it come to fruition.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Yeah. All right. Number 7.
Number 7 is The Phantom Menace.
All right. Yeah.
So The Phantom Menace was, it was one of the first Star Wars movies I saw, because I didn't see them all in order. I saw them kind of like spread apart, but we'll get to that later. But I liked The Phantom Menace. There was just a lot of kind of like, it was a more serious movie, especially like to start, and then the comedic relief was just not worth it.
Jar Jar.
Yes, Jar Jar and the Gungans.
Yeah.
I love Qui-Gon Jinn. Darth Maul still to this day has, in my opinion, one of the coolest lightsabers ever.
I know.
Just that whole storyline. I love the pod racing too. I always thought that was kind of cool.
Such a fun part.
But there was a lot of like political aspects of that movie.
I was gonna say,
trying to set up like the conflict between the Separatists and the Republic.
Yeah.
And that was, for a kid especially, like now I don't mind it as much, but for a kid watching that movie, it was kind of like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you didn't like banking clans and trade unions.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, number 6.
So, number 6 is A New Hope. So, A New Hope was cool. It's the start of the entire Star Wars universe, cinematic universe at least, and it was the start of something, and that's kind of how I view it. It was setting up a lot of things that came later. So a lot of things that like progressed throughout the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, it was revealed kind of through like the midpoint, I guess, or maybe just a little before the midpoint, that Luke is a Jedi and Obi-Wan started to train him, but you didn't really get to see that full like effect of the lightsaber or him use it very much. You see Obi-Wan use it a little bit against Darth Vader, but that wasn't much.
Yeah. So it's a respect thing for you.
Yeah. It's like I love the movie, but it was a setup movie in my opinion.
I see what you're saying. Yep. Which is funny because I think they didn't plan on a trilogy before the movie came out. Like the movie came out and it was supposed to be like, we don't know if we're going to get another, so we're going to give it like a good ending, but like there could be more. So it's funny you say it's a setup. I guess that's a testament to how good they did with Empire and Return of the Jedi, like you said. Yeah.
I guess that's too, looking at it more as like an adult now, as you kind of see that setup that they're trying to do. As a kid, I was just like, cool, blasters.
Ooh,
that was the first ever Star Wars movie I saw too. So
oh, cool. That's nice. That's a nice introduction.
Yeah.
Or
All
I
right,
think
so now
I
we get
think
into
we're
the top five.
yeah, top five. Nice.
Top
Number
five.
five.
So number five is Attack of the Clones.
Cool.
So as a kid, Attack of the Clones, I loved it. I loved the introduction of Boba Fett. I loved the whole like the beginning when they're in, I believe they're in Coruscant, and Zam Wessel comes in and she has the little like beetles to try to kill Padme, and like the whole chase scene. I loved that. Like I
Yeah,
loved a
yeah.
lot about that movie, and then especially I'd say my favorite part was, or one of my favorite parts was when all the Jedi swarm the
Hmm.
Colosseum on Geonosis,
Hmm.
and they just start this big all-out war.
Not a great plan, but they just went for it.
Oh, a horrible strategic plan. But especially when one of your diplomats is up top with all the bad guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Mace Windu's just up there by himself with Dooku and Jango Fett and the Separatists.
Yeah, so funny.
And then you can't beat Yoda finally like showing what he's got
I
against
know,
Dooku.
right? Yeah, imagine seeing the originals and then you never see Yoda, do anything other than train, and then you see Attack of
And
the
then you
Clones,
see
you're like,
that.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're like, holy crap, Yoda in more or less his prime, but he wasn't even like his prime. It was just that was how skilled he was.
Right,
And you'd
yeah.
seen at that point, like before Yoda comes in and steps into fight, you'd seen so many Jedi fight. You'd seen Qui-Gon, you'd see Mace Windu, Anakin, Obi-Wan, you'd seen Dooku fight. Like you've seen this big culmination of Jedi, and then Yoda was kind of like an enigma at that point.
Hmm.
And then he comes in, you're just like, oh, what's he gonna do? And then he's just bouncing off of walls, and his force powers are incredible. And then he takes the force lightning, and you're like,
So cool. So cool.
yeah,
Some advanced techniques.
yeah. So
All right.
that's my number five.
All right, number four.
Number four is Rogue One.
Nice. Nice.
I loved Rogue One.
Yeah.
That was a great movie. Like it's a great like time gap like between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
Hmm.
Um, it's a good all around movie. Like the story was fantastic. A lot of the characters are fantastic. Um, I mean, the outcome at the end was a little less than satisfying, but you kind of figured it would happen because none of
Right.
those characters surface again.
Right. It like adds
Um,
to the epicness of it that it's a suicide mission.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And that's kind of a side tangent off of that. Um, one show I don't know how I feel about is Andor
Mm. I would
because
agree with you.
I talked with my younger brother about it a little bit today, and it's like it's cool. Like his character was pretty cool in Rogue One, but he dies. You know that he died at the end of Rogue One, so I don't really know what the point of like giving a backstory to him is,
Hmm.
because I don't think he was necessarily like the most pivotal character in that movie.
Yeah, I think you also saw like his best character moments in that movie. Like I don't know how they would top anything that he does in that movie, from
Yeah,
being this kind of like secret assassin agent for the rebels and then, basically telling Jin like you haven't been in this thing your whole life. Like this is what my day to day, and then obviously he sacrificed himself. Like I feel like that was
right.
his arc. Like I don't know what you could add to that, but we'll
I
see.
mean,
Yeah.
maybe his background as like a spy, or maybe how he met like K2SO, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like kind of a stretch to me.
I agree.
Seems like they're taking what was like a masterpiece in Rogue One and just trying to like milk it for a little bit more money.
I think they know people love it, and yeah, like you said, trying to kind of stretch it out.
Yeah. All right. So now we get into the top three:
Top
the
three.
gold, silver, and bronze.
Here we go.
So
Number three.
we start with the bronze. So bronze is Revenge of the Sith.
Nice. Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith is by far my favorite movie in the prequel trilogy. Like, I my hype as a kid to see that movie. I don't think I've ever been more excited to see a movie than that in my
Mm,
life. Because just seeing the trailers, like you see the big Wookiee war, like all the clones, and then you know that it's the rise of Darth Vader, and oh, it's just incredible.
yeah. Revenge of the Sith is just such a moment in history. It's just so good.
Yeah, it feels like that whole movie is kind of like a climax of the entire trilogy. and it just stays at that high point the whole time until the Battle of Mustafar between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's just nonstop, like you said. It's so
Yeah.
good. I love it.
So that's my number three. I also like kind of similar to Solo. I just couldn't bring myself to rank it higher than the last two. It's a phenomenal movie, but it's just the other two just hold something special in my heart.
Yeah. All right. Let's see how you do
All
it.
right.
Let's see what's number two.
So number two, I'm gonna have you guess. I'm gonna see if you can guess. Guess what number one and two? You got a 50-50 shot.
I do have a 50-50 shot, and I know the two movies.
Yeah.
Let's see. It seems like you appreciate Han Solo a lot, and I feel like Han Solo's best movie was Empire. So I want to say Return of the Jedi at 2 and Empire at 1.
Nope.
Damn it. All right. Empire at 2.
Yeah. So Empire at 2 and Return of the Jedi at 1. So
All right.
Empire at 2, that is a really good point, and that's why I had Empire ranked so highly. Like the just big character development of Han and kind of the relationship between him and Leia throughout the whole movie is just, it's incredible. I always love like the snow speeder part in the beginning with Luke and the AT-ATs, and then Luke finally like using his lightsaber and during that part, like I always thought that was awesome. The Wampa was a little scary as a kid.
So scary when he's eating the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I was younger, kind of like how I got into Star Wars is me and one of my younger brothers. I was like, I want to say I was like 3 or 4 and he was like 2. We would just explore all the time, as young boys do. And we would explore our house when it was winter. And my parents had a bunch of VHS tapes, but the only ones that they had out were like Disney movies and stuff for me and my brother. But then they had these big blue bins filled with other VHS tapes. Some of them had like family tapes, or some of them had like older movies. Like I think we had like Scarface and stuff like that.
Good stuff for kids.
Like,
yeah.
More adult VHS movies. And I remember there was a box set of the original trilogy of Star Wars movies.
Cool.
I mean, my brother pulled it out and we're looking at it. We're like, what is this? Like, sounds kind of cool. And I remember we went up to my mom and we were like, hey mom, like, what are these? And my mom's like, oh, it's Star Wars. And we're like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Like, can we watch it? And my mom was like, no.
Really?
She thought we were too young. And she didn't want to expose us to the violence of
the Wampa
lightsabers and blasters and stuff like that. But so when we finally got to watch it, it was incredible.
Yeah, and then you got to enjoy the snow in a whole different way. It was like Hoth.
Yeah, well, yeah. When we and my brother were younger, we always like looked outside when it was snowing because we're from New York, and you look outside and you're like, oh, we're on Hoth, and we would run around and like dive in the snow and like use bunkers and stuff.
That's awesome.
And then the whole training montage with Luke and Yoda, it was cool to see. Like, you see this new character introduced for the first time, and you see Luke finally going through his Jedi training, and then he's able to get that X-wing up and out of the swamp.
Yeah, I appreciated that one, that training montage a lot more as I got older, because of like all the profound lines in it. And as a kid, I was like, the training part. But as I got older, I was like, this is so like chock full of like nuggets of information and life advice. It's so cool. I love that part now.
Yeah, and then also one of the biggest like just like releases in the plot at the end of that movie, when Darth Vader and Luke are fighting in Cloud City.
Yeah,
it's just, there's not many moments in movies that are better than that.
So iconic, yeah.
Except for what I'm going to talk about.
Except for number one. Yes.
So, number one being Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi was a movie that always stuck with me. Like, of all the movies that I've ever watched, like Star Wars movies especially, I remember the most about that movie. I don't know if it's because I enjoyed it the most or if because I watched it the most. I don't know. But that movie, like, from start to finish, just had me on the edge of my seat. Just like when it bounced different places, when they start in the whole in Jabba's palace and Han's frozen in carbonite, and then Leia comes to save him, and Luke kind of comes in. Like, it's a lot of action in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it starts out hot, definitely.
Yeah. One also, I would have to say one of my favorite, like, I guess action sequences or parts of all the Star Wars movies is when they go to Endor. I
Hmm.
don't know why I always liked it so much. I love the speeder chase when it's Luke and Leia on the speeder and they're running away from the stormtroopers.
Hmm.
I always liked that. I don't know why. It was like appealing. It was visually appealing. Like it was just awesome to see.
I always like when the two logs come together and destroy the
Yep.
ATST.
The
That's like my favorite.
Ewoks.
Yeah, I love when the logs come in and like it's so satisfying when they just smush the big metal ATST. I was like, that is so cool.
I love how the Ewoks make C3PO their king too.
That is such an underrated part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the moment that I would say is like a bigger kind of reveal or like just a better moment than that moment where Vader finally tells Luke that I'm your father. Um, is that end fight between the Emperor, Luke, and Vader when Vader kind of realizes that what he's been doing and like all of his dark feelings were kind of not justified. They
Mm.
were just manipulation, and the Emperor was just manipulating him, and he kind of like it's like the bond between a father and a son. Yeah, Darth Vader had this heart of darkness for so long. He killed so many people and just did all these horrible things. And then in that moment, he was just kind of like, "That's that's my son. Like,
Yeah, right.
what am I doing?" And then he like picks up the Emperor and just yeets him down the tunnel.
See ya. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Which,
Return of
if
the
we've
Jedi
learned,
is. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, if we've learned anything about people getting dropped down a tunnel, it's that they never die.
They never die.
Apparently, Star Wars tunnels are just not lethal.
They always have
Darth
just couch
Maul,
cushions at the bottom. Yeah.
Darth Maul, Luke falls down the tunnel in Cloud City. The Emperor falls down the
Falls.
tunnel.
And even
Yeah,
blasts into a big blue light, and he still comes back.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Return of the Jedi is my number one as well. I love that movie. I love how perfectly it wraps everything up, and even if they destroy the Death Star again, they made it different enough to not feel like it was just a carbon copy of A New Hope. But yeah, I love Return of the Jedi.
yeah,
That's a great list. I'll be honest. I know you said you had some hot takes. I would think it was a good list, and that's the best thing.
appreciate
Everyone
it.
has
Yeah,
different lists. Everyone has different lists,
that's true.
and that's what makes it fun about asking. I mean, I wouldn't ask people if it was the same list every time. Like it would just be like, okay, what's your list? 11 through 1. It's just the
Right,
same
it's the
every time.
same.
Yeah, so it's good that people always come in with really cool and interesting ones. I mean, I've had people have like Attack of the Clones in their top 3. I've had people have Force Awakens in their top 3. I've had most of the time it's your top 3. It's my that's my top 3. It just reworked.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, it's awesome. I love hearing everyone's opinion on it, and it's just fun to kind of hear the reasoning behind it. It always like opens my perspective because some people really like the sequel trilogy just because it appeals to them, or some people like the prequel trilogy a lot because of the nostalgia and everything like that. So it's always fun to hear.
Yeah, it's also cool to like think about why people like the movies they do and why they rank them that way. Like maybe somebody started with the sequel trilogy and that's like their introduction to Star Wars, so it kind of holds like a special place. Or maybe some people kind of look past like just the lightsabers and blasters and look for more of like that story and like those connection kind of
Mhm.
aspects of the movie. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so true.
it's really cool to think about just how different everybody can be.
Yeah, so true. Well, Jimmy, this has been so much fun. This has been great. We dove real deep into some lore, some real deep cut lore. We talked about, movie rankings, talked about video games, and all of it was a lot of fun. I'll give you the floor right now if you have anything else to say to the good people listening.
Just keep listening, keep supporting Mark. He's doing a great job. This podcast is an incredible thing. I love listening every week.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for having me. It means a lot, and it's cool just getting to kind of geek out and just talk about Star Wars with you for the last, I don't even know how long we've been talking, hour or so. 40
Yeah,
minutes.
I won't let you know because it's actually surprising. It's never, you'll never guess usually because like it's so easy to talk about Star Wars that you've
Mhm.
been talking for like as long as you have. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I appreciate the support. When you sent me that thing that I was on your Spotify Wrapped, like that, like made my day. That was so cool. And yeah, and it helps. Star Wars helps bring people together. Like I said, haven't seen you in a couple of years, and I probably wouldn't have been able to talk to you about Star Wars if I didn't have the podcast. So it's cool how it brings people together.
Yeah, it is. It's just a wonderful thing, and like you said, we haven't seen each other in a while, but like that love for Star Wars was able to bring us together to just be able to talk about it.
Yeah, it's so great. All right, well, Jimmy, thank you very much for coming on and for the kind
Yeah, thank you,
words.
Mark.
And yeah, and thank you all for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and may the force be with you.